I trusted God. I believed that he would do for me what he did for so many others in the Bible. I read the stories. I invested in prayer and fasting. I did all I could do. I did my part, Lord. But you still let me down. This is a cry, an argument, a position that a lot of people have sadly taken due to a circumstance or a situation that has happened to them or someone close to them that was not favorable, someone they loved. They might have lost someone that they care for, maybe have gotten sick, or they are sick themselves, or maybe they lost a house, a job, maybe they're in financial distress or some type of hurt or brokenness. And because that person has not received any relief, or they experienced that loss and they prayed and they've been praying that things would get better and it has not, they have come to the conclusion that God has failed. God let them down. God didn't come through for them. He doesn't care about their situation. He ignores their prayer. And because of this mindset, it has rocked their faith. So what to do when things don't necessarily go the way we want them to? Now, a lot of times we have decent intentions. We have good intentions when we ask for things. Some don't, but I think many of us do. But guys, doubt is something we all face or will face in our walk. I don't care how much faith you claim to have. There are things that will happen to us in this life that will shake us to the core. We see Sarah, we see Abraham, David, Gideon, Eve, biblical examples of people doubting God. It's a real feeling and it can happen to the best of us depending on the situation. Even though doubt is a real feeling, we can all experience. In fact, we will, but when we let it run wild or consume our way of thinking, it can become extremely dangerous. James 1:5-8 says, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do. I think where people struggle with doubt is by praying for something and expecting the outcome to be just how they have planned it to be. But people place their faith in the outcome and their expectations of God instead of the God they serve. What do I mean by that? The Hebrew boys said, our God will deliver us. But even if he doesn't, this statement, some will say, well, aren't they doubting God with that statement? No. In fact, they are solidifying the fact that God is in control, and their focus was not that much on the outcome, but in the God they serve. An outcome-focused statement would have been more focused on the fiery furnace. An outcome-focused mindset would maybe be, maybe we should bow. An outcome-focused thought process would be, we are going to the fiery furnace and God failed. But as we read, we see their trust was in the sovereignty of God. No matter what God allows to happen, they won't allow the circumstance to dictate their trust, their belief in God. Isaiah 55:8-9. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Guys, I'm not saying that this is easy. Sometimes we're going to be faced with some real tough situations, and I'm not by any means minimizing that. Think of Job. But even in the most undesirable situations, we have to believe, we have to trust in God, his character, his promises. We can't get caught up in if the outcomes are going to work out how we want it to. You know, sometimes, and I'm sure many of you can attest to this, God will answer your prayer, but in a totally different way than you expected it. How many have experienced that before? Sometimes you can look back and say, now I see why A, B, and C had to happen. I now see why God didn't allow that to happen or that to take place because of this situation right here. Our faith and trust is in God, first and foremost, his plan for us. Then secondly, our faith and trust is in what he could possibly do in our situation. Remember, it's never a question of can God do, it's only a question of will God do. To be truthful, guys, sometimes he will allow negative things to happen. Job 38, 1-7. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Ooh. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me. If you have understanding, who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched out the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So basically, God is saying, to sum this up, I'm God. Who are you to question me? Now, I know to some this seems kind of hard and harsh, but even though things may get hard in our lives, we don't serve a harsh, mean God who is out to get us. Romans 5:8 says, but God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. We serve a God who loves us, my friends. Scripture tells us we will face trials and tribulations, guys. I get it. Stuff gets tough. And yes, sometimes our faith, sometimes we'll have seasons, man, where, man, we question out of hurt, out of stress. There's no scripture citing that once we get saved, we are superheroes or we will only experience the emotion of happiness. And sometimes, guys, all you will have, let me give some of the young believers out there, let me give you some help. Sometimes all you will have is a cry. Sometimes all you will have is a song. All you will have is, God, I have nothing. All I can do is sit in your presence. Sometimes life will punch you in the gut and that's all you will have. But my brother, my sister, keep pushing, keep trusting, keep believing. And I hope this has encouraged you. And that's always, be bold, be blessed, but most importantly, be biblically constructed.